Hi, I'm Drew and I'm going to be walking you through the Northstar Liberty today. We're going to start here on this front corner and we're going to start talking about the jacks here. Now you have jacks on all four corners of the unit. Operation is done wirelessly. You have this remote here and orientation when looking at this remote is from the rear. So you have control over your driver side front jack, driver side rear jack here, passenger front, passenger rear, or all up or down. To turn this remote and sync it with the board, you're going to push the two center buttons, two top buttons. That links everything up, gets everything ready to go. And again, so driver side front, driver side rear, passenger side front, passenger side rear. Something to remember with this when you are lifting it is you always do want to keep the front slightly higher than the rear. Of course, it is a little front heavy because of the cab over here. Camper should only be up in the air for the small amount of time it takes you to either load or unload it. So the higher you get up, the more unstable it gets. Of course, there should be nobody in it while you're lifting it or loading it. It is just going to be up in the air. It should never be stored up in the air. Things like that are very important to remember. Now again, when we're talking here about on this remote here, you'll see if I remove this plug, that exposes a little telephone jack style plug, and that's what you're going to do. This runs on a couple batteries, and if they were to run out of batteries, you would be able to plug this directly into the jack board, which is going to be located underneath the sink. So we'll kind of get eyes on that here at some point in the presentation. But also one other thing to bring up about the jacks here is going to be the manual mode. Let's see if I can get this plug on. Manual mode here is, you can see on each jack you have an oversized, looks like a giant Allen key there. On the inside we're going to find a crank handle that corresponds with that. In the event of a power loss situation, you are going to have to manually crank these up or down to load and unload. So first you would disengage the drive of the motor here. So that motion is just pushing this down. That would allow you to jack this up in a short increment, move to the other side, do the same over there, and then vice versa there on the back. So we then have your 30 amp plug here. The way that Northstar does it is they wire the unit for a 30 amp 120 volt connection here, but because of the size of the unit, that allows them to then reduce that down to a standard 15 amp outlet. Makes it more convenient for you as the consumer to find a 15 amp outlet out there in the wild. So a lot of state park sites, things like that, are going to have, again, a 15 amp outlet, which most will not have a 30 amp outlet. So this is how it was set up from the factory. This is how you're going to use it. Of course, if you, for whatever reason, aren't impressed with this setup, you could always run that on a standard 30 amp connection here. This reducer is only going to plug into the unit one way, and we're going to see all these lights come off because we don't have batteries on it right now, but you can see that only makes sense that that's going to plug in one way. So we plug it in, give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right, that locks it in. Then we do have this secondary collar here. We can screw down, lock it in further if we wish. Right below that, we have your potable water fill. This cap comes off here, and that of course exposes the fill for the tank. You'll stick a garden hose directly in here, a freshwater drinking hose directly in there, fill it up till it overflows. Of course, once it spits back some water on you, that's full. This tank is not, of course, naturally pressurized. So what you need to do is use the onboard water pump to draw that water up from the tank into the fixtures. That switch is going to be located on the inside to the left of the kitchen sink, and we will, of course, get eyes on that. You'll actually see that in working today. That's for this demonstration. We are using that water pump, and we do have water in the tank. City water connection is going to be down low here. City water is what you're going to be using if you're in the capacity of an RV park or you have access to full-time running water. Very important, I don't have it here, but you're always going to want to use a water pressure regulator. There will be one included with the unit when you take possession of it. That water pressure regulator is going to hook directly onto the water source, and then your hose onto that. So water pressure regulator directly to the source, hose onto, it would be this side of the hose directly onto that, the spigot side, and then this guy here is going to thread directly onto the camper here. Water pressure regulator, the one we include for you is going to be, can keep that water pressure in between 40 and 50 psi. You can upgrade that to a high flow water pressure regulator if you wish to do so, if you're looking to get more flow. Just personally would not go above 75 psi, so keep that in mind. Anywhere in between 40 and 75 psi is going to be a good number for you. Right beside that right beside that city water connection, we have a standard solar style plug. That is going to be used for any portable solar panel. Essentially plug and play connection here. So this plug is directly connected to the battery. Most of those portable solar panels have the charge controller built directly into the panel. That is going to kind of be the brains to the operation. That's going to intake energy as necessary and not when it's not needed. So for all intents and purposes, just plug that panel in, stretch it out, put it into the light, and it's going to do all the work from there on out. Now the unit does have rooftop solar, and we are going to talk about that more on the inside when we get to the charge controller itself. Water heater here. This is a 6-gallon capacity Suburban water heater. This particular water heater does accept an anode rod. That's going to be here. It's an anode rod as well as your drain plug. That anode rod does need to be maintained. Now, expect to get a year or two in between changing your anode rod. If you don't know, an anode rod acts like a magnet for hard water deposits calcification. They deposit onto the anode rod as opposed to the inside of the water heater, and they eat away at that again instead of the inside of the water heater. Now I said it's your anode rod as well as your drain plug. So manufacturer has two very specific recommendations. Number one is going to be draining the water heater if it is going to be in storage for more than 7 days. And the other recommendation is going to be, of course, filling the water heater back up before you use it. So starting with how to drain it, it is very important from a safety standpoint that we do properly drain the water heater. To do so, we're going to give it ample time to cool down. From there, it is very important that we do depressurize it. You can feel free to use the automatic pressure relief valve here. So if you go ahead and pull up on this, it's going to spit that water out here. Again, it's under pressure. I would be very careful doing it from this location. And probably a much better option is going to be just turning the hot side of the spigot on the inside. Any fixture, whether it be the outside shower, the inside shower, or the kitchen sink, if you were to open any of those on the hot side, that's going to blow off that excess pressure here. Of course, you need to cut the inlet flow of water first, but once you do that and you open up that hot side, from there, you can come out here and start your actually draining procedure once that pressure is relieved. So your drain plug here is going to be 1 1/16. You probably need an extension on that socket to actually get to it. So once you're depressurized, you're going to come down here, back that drain plug and anode rod out. That's going to drain the remaining water from this location here. Again, very important. I can't stress enough how important it is to depressurize this first. If you fail to do so and you come down here and you try and take this drain plug out, it's going to go ahead and spit that anode rod, 20 feet that way. Hopefully you're not in the way of it. So very important that we follow that procedure. On the other side of that, which is of course filling it up before lighting it, again, we're going to introduce water, whether it be from the freshwater holding tank or the city water connection. We're going to introduce water to the system. From there, again, we're going to turn the hot side of the spigot on. Again, any spigot does not matter. If we turn that hot side on, that's going to feed 6 gallons of water to the unit before you actually see it at the fixture. That flow is going to initially be very interrupted, very flowy, or very airy, I should say, spitting at you. And again, once that flow normalizes, that is indicating to us that we have 6 gallons of water in here everything is good to go, we can go ahead and flip on that switch there on the inside to actually start running this. That does bring me to a good point. There's no pilot light that needs to be lit on this. It is auxiliary switched with the direct spark igniter, and that is all going to be done on the inside. One thing to speak of is with these propane burning appliances, it is very important that we protect them from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. The easiest way to do that is going to be with some screening material for these orifices here. Now that not only goes for the water heater, but that does go for the furnace, refrigerator vents, things like that. We do need to pay special attention that we are screening those off, especially here in Texas. We do need to keep those flying insects out. Now door just sits here on these two pegs, and then we line that guy up there, give it a quarter turn, and he's locked on. Moving on, we have the light here. We have the lights on both sides. Switch on each one of those lights is going to be right underneath the fixture there. Hood vent here. This is of course going to draw any cooking smoke and things like that out, just like at home, except for you do need to open this before using. So you have two little tabs there. If you just lift it out on them, that's going to open up. And then of course you do have to remember to close it before going down the road as well. If you forget to close it, you may get a little bit of water in there. It's not going to like rip it off, not going to sink the ship or anything, but it is really important that you do open it before cooking a meal. That way that hood vent can do what it's designed to do. And I have heard that with it drawing that heat out and such, it can actually melt this door. So just something that I've heard, so keep that in mind. We have your furnace here. From a maintenance standpoint, not really too terribly much you're going to be doing with that. This is your exhaust vent. Two recommendations for that. Number one is going to be let it exhaust, let it breathe. Don't put anything in front of it. It does blow very hot air when it is on. And number two, again, is going to be the addition of a bug screen to keep flying insects, dirt daubers, things like that from nesting inside the appliance. Just taking a look down low, making sure I'm not missing anything, and we are good to go there. Coming here to the back side, I'm going to turn this light off just for the presentation, but we have your cassette toilet here. That is, of course, underneath, behind this door. Now, when using a cassette toilet, it is very much like any other kind of RV camping toilet, although it does have its own removable holding tank, as well as a water supply that is separate from the rest of the camper. Now, first things first, to add water to the appliance, we kind of pull that out, and this has a cap on it. And this is where we fill the water. So we'll use a hose or a gallon jug or whatnot to fill this up. And this is our sight glass. So this is going to tell us how much water we have in the appliance. Once that's done, of course, you can flush it like normal on the inside. We'll kind of get to that, I guess, on the inside. You can see it actually kind of, the button you would need to feed water to the toilet and things like that. Now, once you're confident that once it comes time to dump your tank here, you have a little handle here. You lift up on that allows you to bring this whole thing out. This is actually your valve here. That you're going to, when you use the bathroom, what you see from the inside is actually here. It's nice that when you pull to remove it, it actually kind of closes it up, so it keeps it kind of like a closed system, so you're not actually seeing any of your waste, which is nice. From there, you kind of have this little handle that comes out along with the wheels. You can take that to your dump station, wherever you're dumping your waste. You flip this guy out here, and that of course has a lid on it as well. You remove that lid, and then from there you can actually dump it like so. Now this little button here, that just is like a airflow button. What that does is just keep it from glugging, and it's actually going to make it easier when you go to dump it. So this knob here, not something you have to worry about, but if you are curious, this is just what is turning the mechanism in there when you actually flush it on the inside. So again, not anything you have to worry about when using it. is done on the inside. And then they give you this little funnel, which he stores here, but they do that so you can, again, if you need that to put water in there, you have a little funnel as well. So. And that just very easily slides back in there. Once it's locked in there, it's ready for service. So again, just like the act of pulling it out kind of closes that up, when you do push it in there, it does open that valve up. And again, it is ready for service. Rooftop ladder or ladder access here. Very important that once every 90 days, you're going to not only crawl up there on the roof and check those sealants up top, but you're also going to maintain the sealants on the body as well. Anywhere where two pieces come together, whether that's going to be on the roof or on the body, there will be use of some sealants. Specifically two sealants you're going to use, one for the roof and one for the body. Everything you see on the body is going to be generally a 100% silicone product. And you of course can source that from any RV dealer, any hardware store. It is just a standard silicone product. Now, again, anywhere where two pieces come together, there is going to be some sort of sealant that will need to be maintained. What you're looking for is any degradation, any peeling of that sealant, any cracks, anything like that. You're going to be checking for those every 90 days. On that same schedule, you're going to hop up there on the roof, and you're going to be looking for the same thing. Any peeling of sealants, any cracks, anything like that. What you're going to use on the roof to maintain those seals is a self-leveling lap sealant. Probably going to be best suited to source that from an RV dealer. Not something you're going to be able to get from a standard, hardware store. So it is a self-leveling lap sealant. You kind of use a heavy hand when you apply that. And of course it self-levels and covers the area. So, down low we have a quick connect here for your outside shower, I guess you would call it, or sprayer, however you want to utilize it. You do have access to hot and cold water, which would make it a viable shower option, but that is up to you. Now you do have a quick disconnect collar here, so we slide that locking collar back, insert the male end there. If we were to turn the water on here, we would of course be able to go ahead and spray it, clean the unit, clean our feet off, whatever we had in mind. Now we have a dump valve here. The unit, of course, we talked about the cassette toilet. This is going to be gray water only, so this is going to be wastewater from the sink, shower, things like that. You have quite a few ways of operating this. As you see this now, it is in the closed position. If we were wishing to dump, we would connect something here onto the bayonet fitting, whether that be a garden hose. So this is threaded for a standard garden hose. We'd hook that on there. We could route that wastewater away from our campsite if we were inclined to do so. Or you have a standard bayonet style fitting here, which is going to fit a standard RV grade sewer hose. So we have one here for you. To attach this, it's going to be the very same way as the cap comes off. So you can see those two look very similar. You'd put this in the halfway position, give it a quarter turn, that goes ahead and locks it on. Whichever you decide to use, it's nice you have the option. When it does come to dump, it is just going to be a 6-inch pull on this handle here, and that will allow that to dump. Now, since there is no solid waste in this system, it's okay. I would say it would be okay if you were to leave this gray water valve open when in use, as long as you are, of course, plumbed some way. Keep you from having to drain your tank. There's no solid waste in there. Nothing to get caught up. But again, we're kind of splitting hairs. We're talking about preference here. You'll figure out which works for you. Wrapped around that valve, we have your standard 7-way wiring. This is often called a umbilical cord or whatever, but this connects your vehicle, your tow vehicle, which in this case is going to be your truck and your camper as one. So this is going to be plugged into either the 7-way receptacle on the back of your vehicle or in the rear of your bed. Either way, this is going to give you full function to your tow vehicle's lights, charging system, things like that. So we'll always want to make sure that's, of course, plugged in. Door. Handle here is going to be it locks in the out position. It would be a lift and fold over, of course, for travel there. Couple 110 all-weather outlets here. Nothing too crazy there, just if we want to plug something in here on the porch. Coming around here to this side, we have your awning. This crank handle stores in the shower. So, of course, you'd pull this out from the inside of the shower. You hook that crank right there onto the side. That allows you to go ahead and crank this awning out. And this is an 8-foot awning. Of course, I'm not going to run it all the way out. Let me do a little bit more. You can choose how far out you run it. Now, it has 2 legs. They slide out the end here. And these, they come right out the end there. Once you hit that end, you kind of let it pivot. Something like that. And then we have a couple options. We can, of course, go, if we were inclined to do so, we could feed this leg out. We could go straight down to the ground if we wanted to. We do, again, have more adjustment on there. I know it's not reaching the ground, but we could, again, push that down to the ground and stake it down and be fine. Or if we wanted to, we can come back to the trailer connection here. Now, let me get some more play in this. So once I pull this orange tab all the way out, that gives us play in that. And from there we can, we lift up this locking bar in the up position there. And that allows that foot to kind of fall right into there. Oop. So, if I'm not mistaken here, maybe we're going to want that orange tab on the inside as opposed to the outside. This is really articulating, so I just pulled it out the wrong way. But if I'm not mistaken, that will allow this to seat better, because you can see on this leg it has a long side and a short side, and we want the short side to be up. So we put the long side down. That's going to allow that to sit flat, and then this bar slides down, keeps that from going anywhere. Once we are locked in, we can finish locking this down. Of course, if we wanted it to be higher, we wanted to, angle the pitch or something, we can do so as well. We're going to put tension on this. We're going to pull that all the way back. That's going to put tension on this and lock it in that position there. And of course, I'm not going to pull it out, but you do have another leg here, and it is going to be that same operation that we just spoke of. You have a second lock tab there. Now on the way in, again, very similar to what we just saw, you're going to undo this, and then you have a little detent here. We're going to, in this time, we're going to start with that. And we push that all the way in. Then we're going to unlock this here. That's going to free float that. And then we come straight out with it. And you see you got to line that up just perfectly to feed that in. And once we're in, we just want that foot to go far enough back to where it sits in there and kind of locks itself in. From there, again, we're just going into the reverse direction there. Oh, one thing I didn't say, when you are running this out, and I am going to run it all the way out just so you can see this, you can see it reaches a point where it's nice and tight, and then if I go further, all the tension falls out. That is all the way out when it is tight. So when it's as tight as it can get, that's the full out position. And then we're just going to come back in. And we'll remove this handle and we'll go ahead and put this back in the bathroom where it goes for storage. Refrigerator here. Going to start off by saying, again, this is a huge intrusion point for mud daubers and flying insects. We do want to further screen off this vent to keep them from nesting in there. Now that that's out of the way, from a maintenance standpoint, not too terribly much you're going to be doing back here. Now you may periodically remove this vent to inspect that you do have it lit on propane. It is running on propane right now. You can see a little flame in there. Again, you may question if it is actually running on propane, and you can remove this to inspect that. It's going to be my recommendation to, at the very least, remove this a couple times a year. Make sure, give it a visual inspection, make sure that nothing looks suspect, there's no frayed wires, nothing has nested in there. Just give it a visual inspection. Other than that, not something that we really consider a customer serviceable unit. The casual customer really there's not too terribly much you're going to be doing in here. So this vent goes on with the bottom first. So you can see those tabs, they need to be lined up. And then you have those square holes there. We're going to line these tabs up properly, and if you do, it's going to rest there nice and easy. And then we do turn these to lock them. A little hard on the fingers. You can use the backside of a key, coin, whichever you decide. Your propane compartment here. Now, I love the way that Northstar did this compartment. They of course only have one 20-pound propane tank in there that is full for you today, but they did give you the space here that you could set another tank in there and carry 2 tanks with you, which is awesome. Not foresight that you will see oftentimes, but it is nice that they did. Open and close valve on the top of the tank, just like any barbecue grill. I find most people are somewhat familiar with the operation of that tank. Now, if you do want to remove that tank to get it filled or anything like that, you have a tension band on here, and let me go ahead and latch that so you can see it. That's that motion there, and then you go ahead and further unlock it, and these like to kind of swing out of the way there, and that would allow this whole tank to come over. You of course have your pigtail here. You're just going to unscrew that. That will allow you to take it out, get it filled. Do whatever you need to do in those terms. Light on this side, again, switches right there on the light, same as all of the rest of the outside lights. Another cool thing that Northstar does is they do have an LED strip on each side underneath the wing. That's controlled from the inside. We'll get to that switch there on the inside. But they also have a 12-volt receptacle here, and it has a cap on it. Excuse me, it's actually USBs. So you have 2 USBs there. If you're hanging out outside here underneath the awning, charge your phone, run any USB-driven appliance. That just about covers it here on the outside. I think we hit everything, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to hop on the inside, start talking about that stuff there on the inside. So coming here inside the entry door, first up we have 3 switches down here close to the floor. This one all the way on the bottom, it does have a little light on it, may be hard to see. That's actually a tank heater, so that is designed for any cold weather camping. That's going to help with keeping your wastewater from freezing. So your gray water tank, that's just a heating pad on the bottom of that, again, to help that from freezing, specifically for cold weather. So if you're here in Texas, probably not very many cases that you're going to actually be using that tank heater. Right above that, these are going to be the wing lights. So you have a LED strip light on the driver and passenger side underneath the wings of the camper. That's going to be how you turn those on and off. And then this one up top is what they call a courtesy light. So this is just a common switch you can hit coming in the door at night, and it's going to turn on that light above my head and give you to light your way into the actual camper. Also, while I'm here, we're going to talk about your fire extinguisher as well as all of your safety equipment. So it's our recommendation, as well as the manufacturers, that you do test all of your safety equipment every time you take the unit out. To do so with the fire extinguisher, you're going to push this green test tab down. If it springs back like so, that means there's pressure still in the unit and it is very usable. Now, if it stays depressed, it is time to go ahead and toss that out and get a new one. So coming inside the unit, other than kind of under the shower storage here, not really much here on this level. So we'll hop in here and talk about the bathroom. Right inside the bathroom here, kind of a lot going on. You have a little towel rack that does just fold down. This is the storage spot for your awning crank handle. We demoed that on the outside. Now here on the inside as well, we are going to show you that flushing mechanism of the toilet, as we did talk about that on the outside as well. So this little blue button, if you go ahead and push that, that's going to fill that toilet bowl with water. Always a good idea to keep water in the bowl. That is going to help keep some bad smells down. With this style cassette toilet, one thing you do want to remember before pulling the actual cassette out of the backside, we want to make sure there's no water remaining in the bowl. So just give it a flush, and then you can go ahead and pull that cassette out the backside and dump it, as we spoke of earlier. Also here in the shower bathroom, light fixture is going to be right there, or button's going to be right there on the fixture. And that is the exact same for all of the light fixtures here in the unit. So they are all going to have a small button here, and that's how you turn them on and off. So not very many common switches in the unit. Shower is going to have a on-off switch there. That becomes helpful to conserve the 6 gallons of hot water that you do have on the unit. What you're going to probably find yourself doing is a military kind of Navy style shower, and what that does is that allows you to turn off that flow of water without changing your mixture down at the valve. So it's just an on-off switch. Does have a platform here on the floor designed for when you're using it as a commode, but when you do shower, you do just lift this out and store. It's helpful if you're doing anything in there and you don't want wet feet if you have just taken a shower. So turning around here, we have your refrigerator. This is a 3-way refrigerator. It runs on 110 volt electricity, as well as propane, and 12 volt. On-off switch is here, and then we select the mode by pushing the corresponding source there. So again, that plug is going to be 110 volt electricity. We get into that mode by just pushing the button. Propane is in the middle, and 12 volt is there on the end. This is going to be your temperature control there. The more bars you see, the cooler it is in the unit. And this exclamation point inside the triangle, that's going to be your reset button. So if you ever encounter a code, it's going to let you know here on the display by beeping and blinking at you. What I mean by code is, like, if we were to try and light this on gas and we didn't have gas available, the tank was closed or something along those lines, it's going to start alarming to me. This is just acknowledging that code, and then once I hit that button, it's going to start trying to relight in that particular scenario. So if that does alarm to you, especially on this gas, just go ahead, check and make sure you have gas in the bottle, make sure that it's on, and come back and then hit that button, and it's going to automatically start lighting again. Right above my head here, we have your fan vent. Now this should be locked, closed and locked anytime you are traveling down the road. So to unlock it, we pull that knob down. That allows us to then crank it open. We have directions there in terms of which way we want to turn it. Once I open it, I can come here and turn it on. I can either draw air in from the outside, I can exhaust it, I can control the speed right here on the actual unit, and I can also set a thermostat here. So if I push that auto button, that's going to set it to 78 degrees. That fan's going to kick on and off to maintain that temperature. Again, very important that we do close this down and lock it before going down the road. And finish it up by pushing that in the up position there. Here on this wall, we have, this is going to be your porch light switch, so probably can't see that there on the outside, but that's going to control that rear porch light. We have a digital clock here, of course runs on a couple AA batteries. You'll know when those need to be replaced. And then we have a couple 110 volt outlets here, a 12 volt charging center with a couple USBs as well. Well, we're coming kind of circling this way. We're going to talk about the windows. Now, all the windows in the unit are exactly the same. So they're all going to have these push button tabs on them. So we push that gray tab in that allows us to go ahead and rotate that latch out of the way. And we do so all the way around the window. And then I lift out, and I have multiple positionings in terms of how far we're going to let that open. So about every 6 inches you have another click. So you're listening for that click, and that's when it's going to hold into that position. Now if I want to bring it in, I will go all the way out past the click and allow that to come back in. If we want to have that window in the open position and we want to keep the bugs from getting in, we can go ahead and pull that screen down. And in that same breath, if we want some privacy, we just have to pull that screen up. Now when I unhook this, they do separate there. And then also on this window, if we're coming in and I gotta go past the clicks, we have this middle channel here. That's gonna give us a vent option. That gives you about a fingertip's worth of opening there. Lets you vent the cabin with still being relatively secure. So if you're having any condensation issues or it's raining or something like that, you can still have this window open and still be secure. It does go without saying though that is only designed, or that is only a feature for when you are stationary. So going down the road, you need to pull that all the way back past that plastic and lock that down there. Also, moving on here, we have your stereo system here. Now this is just a standard Pioneer head unit, very much like you've seen probably in the aftermarket car audio sector. So navigating around this is very typical, very standard. With this center button is going to take you through the menus and most of the functions. I'm not going to spend too terribly much time on this. It does have its own service manual. I do encourage you to read that and familiarize yourself with that. Gonna drop down low here. We're going to talk about this Lagoon table mount. Now this is pretty endlessly positionable. You do have multiple positions there that you can use this, and it is completely removable. In fact, you do have to remove it to utilize the pull-out sofa here. When you're looking at these handles, and it really only comes into play specifically with this bottom one. Now I want to go ahead and loosen this, and to do so I have to turn it counterclockwise, and I run into the wall here. So in that event, you can go ahead and lift out on that. That's going to allow you to rotate the gearing there and get a fresh turn on that. So before we do that though, it does make sense to separate these two pieces up top here. And we don't have that issue on this knob. Of course, I can spin that around endlessly. So once I take the tension off that tabletop, I can go ahead and lift that tabletop off, and then that's going to allow me to easier lift this up and out of the way. And because of the way that this is made, we actually have to lift that couch out of the way there. From there, we can go ahead, and we do have a foldable leg down here. And I have to remind myself on how to actually bring that down. And it's just going to be a pull, and that's going to bring that down. And then you have a detent here if you need a little bit more height there. So let me kind of reorganize some things here. And that's about the perfect height. So it's already set up for the height you would need. From there, you're just going to pull this out and lay this other cushion down. So that's the bed there, that secondary sleeping area. Does make a very usable space. So and then putting it back up, is again very easy to do so. And you really, if you wanted to leave this in that down position, I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but to fold it back up, pull down in this scenario, and then allow that to fold back up. Probably obstructed from view is going to be your carbon monoxide LP leak detector there. Now that is again a piece of your safety equipment, so it is very important to test that every time before taking the unit down the road. It does have a test button right there. It's going to tell you which gas it's sensing by a variety of blinking lights there. And this is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so it kind of secondarily functions as a low battery alarm as well. If your battery's getting too low, this is going to start indicating to you, letting you know that you are about to lose a very important safety function. So standing up here, that brings us to the AC. Your indicator is forward, pointing forward. So when we turn this knob, first up is going to be low fan. And then they have a low fan again because this can accommodate a heat strip. If we were to use a heat strip, it's going to be on that secondary low fan setting. That's high fan there. That's low cool there. And that's high cool there. So that's about as loud as we can expect it to get. And then we do have your thermostat here. You can set that. It's not an exact science. You'll have to figure out what comfort level works for the climate that you're in. Has these louvers front and back. We can directionalize where we want to push that air. If we're sleeping and it's very hot, we can push all available air towards the bed there. Also does have removable filters here, so you got a couple tabs on each side. You have one on each side, and then that's going to expose this washable filter here. Pull it out, rinse it off in the sink, let it dry, and then replace. Should last you many, many years. When it does come to replacing it, just visit your local RV dealer. They'll be able to find one for you. In here towards the kitchen, starting up high, we have your, well, first off, we have your microwave. Nothing too crazy about that. It is just a standard run-of-the-mill microwave. Functions as such. So I find most people can work themselves around that. And then again, this is going to look very typical of what you may have in your house. You have a light there, you have a fan. Again, nothing too out of the realm there. Right here we have your solar charging, your solar charge controller. Now this is very visual. You're not going to have very much control over what's going on with the overall system, but this is the brains to the solar panel up top. This is going to intake energy as necessary. And give you the kind of the numbers behind that. And you can see again 13.3 volts, that's very standard, and we are taking in 0 amps via solar because we are inside here in the shop. So nothing really to do with that. You can do the math there with the amp hours, see how long you got to push off grid and things like that, but other than that, this kind of just does run in the background. Below that we have the furnace, the thermostat for the furnace. Now I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get this to kick on because it's very warm today. So to do so though, you would turn that into heat mode here. It's either off or on heat, and then we're going to choose a temperature here. Now if you're looking at this display, and I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but the small numbers on the display are this thermostat set temperature. The large number is going to be the real-time temperature. Now your blower motor is right here, and this is going to be the only place where heat is exhausted from the unit. So generally that blower motor is going to come on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. Oftentimes in these smaller campers, right around that minute-and-a-half mark, it may set off your smoke alarm. It's just very hard to have a propane burning furnace in a space this small and not have it set off your smoke alarm. Now that should dissipate within the first 15 minutes of use. It does burn much more efficient after that amount of time. So Once we turn it off, just generally cool down for another minute or so after that to blow off that excess heat. We have your cooktop here. This Dometic style cooktop does have a sparker igniter, which is a really nice feature. Most in this size category do not. So when we turn it to light, we can go ahead and push that in, and then same for this burner. So we just have to push it in, hit that light button, and there we go. To close it, we do want to lift the lid, and they do give you a reminder sticker there. So we lift the lid. That does allow us to close it there. Storage in this back compartment is a kind of a weird setup, but they do make a very good job of using every inch of space. You will appreciate that, I promise. Another really cool feature of this unit is going to be this Dometic sink that they use and the kind of bits and bobs that it comes with. So everything stores nicely together, but you have a cutting board here, you have a dish drying rack, you have a rack for all your utensils and things like that as you're washing, drying, things like that. And then it all does come back here into this nice space here. And then our sink is very standard. You got your sink there, and you have a couple spray options, as well as that pull down sprayer as well. That brings us down here. So you may have saw me turn on that water pump. This is going to be this switch here is labeled on and off. Nothing too crazy with that. That's what you're going to use if you're off-grid camping. That's how we pressurize that freshwater holding tank to draw that water up to the fixture and make it usable. Right beside that, we have your water heater switch. Now this is again on and off. That red light's going to come on with the switch. That is essentially your indicator on whether or not the water heater has lit. So comes on with the switch again. After a few seconds, it's going to actually start igniting. You'll see that momentarily come off. And if it fails to light, it's going to come back on. So if you come back 5 minutes later and that light is still on, that means the water heater has cycled 3 times. It has tried to light 3 times and failed to do so, so it's going to stop trying. What that means for you is you need to do a little bit of investigation. Check outside. Again, make sure your gas bottle's on. Make sure you have gas in the bottle, and come back inside. As long as you've corrected the issue, you turn that switch on, turn it back off. It's going to recycle, and generally, again, as long as you've corrected the issue, it will light on the first try of the second cycle. Down low a little further, we have your battery disconnect switch. Now this is helpful if you, or this is a must if you are storing the unit for long periods of time. What this is going to do is it's going to completely isolate those batteries on that 12-volt circuit. So easiest way to familiarize yourself with that is if you can remove the key, then you would be disconnected. If the key's locked in, then you are connected. And again, you're going to disconnect those batteries anytime you're storing the unit for a long period of time. Have these little doors here on each side of the unit. Those are those pass through to the outside. Their main function though is so you can have storage. So when this sits in the bed of your truck, you do have about maybe 8 inches there left of the bed, and you could just throw some things back there. And again, it's just an efficient use of space. 110 volt outlet here, as well as some secondary storage as well. Also, we have your drain valve there for the freshwater tank. If we were to turn that valve to the left, that's going to drain that freshwater tank out. Now on this particular model, we did a few upgrades for the customer. Yours may or may not have this stuff installed in it. So we installed a inverter in the unit. This is the switch that you see here that is just on and off. The light there indicates that it's on. Now that is only powering this outlet here. So unless we do that upgrade for you, you're not going to have this outlet. You're not going to have this switch. So, but in this case, it is there. We also have your fuse panel breaker box. Everything here on the left side is going to be your 110 volt appliances. Standard resettable light switch style breaker there, very much like you have at home. Here on the right side, we have your automotive blade style fuses. They are labeled in terms of the DC circuits here on the door. Not a bad idea to pick a variety pack of fuses, keep them with the unit. Generally, it's not something that you're going to need very often, but as fate would have it, if you don't have a spare, you'll probably almost immediately need one. So again, this may look slightly different for your particular unit, but I'm going to remove this cover here. This is where these batteries, your batteries, and in this case, the inverter sit as well. Now, you'll have one battery here. Again, we upgraded to a 2 battery system and the inverter here as well. Nothing that these are maintenance free batteries, so there's not really much you have to do with them. And again, this system here is pretty user friendly and very easy to navigate around. So this is where it sits, but as a consumer, you do not have to do anything here. And you may not even have this stuff, again, depending on the upgrades that we install for you. You do have an opening here on the tank. What that does is that gives you a secondary fill location, or gives you a larger orifice if you were sanitizing or cleaning the tank. So it just gives you access to the inside of the tank, which is a really cool feature. So in a lot of these truck campers especially, you don't have access to that tank very often. So anything that you can do to easily clean it out is a bonus for sure. So I'm just going to put this step back on. That way I can crawl up there into the bed area and start talking about some of that stuff. So coming up here, first thing's going to be the TV. Now this is already unlocked and ready to use. So when you're traveling though, it does need to be locked down. This is going to be the motion, and you're probably not going to be able to see it when it's locked in there, but you'll pull down on this and then rotate the TV out. And again, it goes without saying that TV does need to be locked down anytime you are going down the road. So. Now this TV, I'm going to go ahead and pull it back out, and so we can get eyes on another piece of equipment. So you have a rooftop digital over-the-air television antenna there. That is powered. If you find this white cable, and then we were on the other side of that, there's a small button and a little green light. That's going to power that antenna. So we do want to make sure that that light's on. It may not show up there on film. Just find the cable fitting, and directly to the right of that is going to be that button. Once that button and light are on, we're going to come here and we're going to directionalize our antenna. We're going to look for the best signal that we can find. And once we do find that, we're going to go ahead and then do a channel search on the television that's going to bring in any over-the-air digital antenna, now, or any over-the-air digital programming. Now this isn't always up antenna, so what that means for you is you don't have to remember to crank it down like the old days. There's no travel position. It can travel any way you leave it. So again, kind of coming up here into the bed area. I'm not sure if I already talked about this, but this is the location of your smoke alarm. Runs on a 9-volt battery just like at home, and it'll let you know when it needs to be replaced just like at home. And then we have your hike vent up here as well. Now this is your fire escape or your emergency exit in this particular unit. Now you not only have a screen, or excuse me, a blackout shade to help keep the sunlight out, you also have a screen as well. And then if you're opening that up, you have a button here that needs to be pressed. So we press that button. That's going to allow this bar to rotate down, and then we pull towards the front, and that opens it up. And then we have few positions there. If we, for whatever reason, didn't want to have it all the way open, we wouldn't have to. And then on the way back up, again, super important, we just push it above that button until it clicks, and then we're locked on. We do have the same style lights up here and switches, and then we have another charging station on this side of the bed, a couple USBs, as well as a 12 volt. And I don't believe that we have one on this side. Nope. And then you just have storage here on either side. That just about covers it here on the inside of the unit. If you do have any questions, anything that we could further explain, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd be happy to touch base with you on anything in here. Thank you.